Well, here we are again. Are You Cirrus is back. And today we're going to be talking about tornadoes. I am Jamie Arnold, Chief Meteorologist at WNBF News.
And I am Andrew Docker. We remembered it. Meteorologist in the morning here at WNBF News. We tell you to like, subscribe, share, comment.
All of it?
All of it. I will tell you that just on YouTube alone, we are now over 1,000 views.
Look at that.
Combined, obviously.
Not only that, but we now have official Are You Cirrus mugs. So
They look so good.
I think we may be here to stay. We're also getting more and more casual, which I love. Like,
we're going to get into summertime.
It's going to be shorts and flip-flops.
Tank top, Ray-Bans.
I'm all about it.
The whole shebang.
I'm so dedicated to this podcast, and I'm here on my day off.
Yeah, you really are.
And I was not about to put on any clothes for this. Any nice clothes. I did put on clothes.
And I even asked you, I said, Jamie, you're off. Do you want to record this?
Yeah.
Like, we can do another day.
This is so fun.
And you said, I'm here for the people.
Yeah, right? This is it. I'm not letting anybody down. This is the highlight of my week.
I actually look forward to
I
this
do too.
a lot.
It's so easy. It's the easiest part of everything we do.
We get to geek out. Today's topic is going to be lovely. We're talking about tornadoes.
Yeah, lovely topic.
A lot of misconceptions.
Yep.
But I also want to kind of talk about just a big thanks to everyone who has watched.
Absolutely.
I didn't know if we would get your questions.
Yeah. But we are.
We are, and we still are.
Yeah.
Comments. And what's crazy to me, and it might be like this for you, we've had people say, I didn't even know you all did a podcast.
Yeah.
And we're 4 episodes in.
Yeah.
Hey, welcome to the train. I love it.
Yeah.
Welcome to the team.
Yeah. So if this is your first one, go back, watch the other ones if you want to.
Yeah.
Or start watching from here. You know, we're kind of figuring this out as we go.
Yeah, which is fun.
And which,
kudos to our team, too. I know we have Sarah and Anya in the back. We have our digital team who's done everything.
The best.
This has been designed by our team.
Love this.
So we did not expect it to go this far.
I think this means we can't get canceled. Although if we get canceled, we know whose fault it's going to be. It's going to be mine. No doubt about it. But yeah, we got the mugs and everything. So we're like official now.
We are official. We've made it. I do want to tell you, we got one question. We had 2 really good ones.
Yeah.
One was so good, I said, let's make that another episode.
Yes.
Because Mark, if you're watching, I promised it would be in this episode. We're just going to make that a whole episode.
We're going to do a whole episode on Mark's question, which was basically the National Weather Service. Do we just copy their forecast from the National Weather Service?
What do we do? How do we choose what goes into a broadcast?
Yeah.
Packed. We would be here all day.
That is a whole nother podcast.
So I love it. Thank you.
So Mark, the next one after this, that's our next episode, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so after this episode, the next one will be, what is it that you guys do?
Yeah. What do you get paid for? I do want to say, we do have a question, though, from Joey, which he is listening or watching or whatever you're doing, Joey, in Georgetown.
Love it.
Beautiful area.
Love Georgetown.
He says, what makes a thunderstorm?
Oh.
I love this.
That's a whole nother podcast.
I know.
Yeah.
We'll do simple terms.
Yeah.
Because we could really go into this big time.
We could.
There's a lot of ways you can actually make a thunderstorm, believe it or not. Yep. The typical summertime one for me that I always grew up, my favorite analogy to use for the kids, use a lava lamp.
Yes.
So if a lava lamp heats up enough, what happens?
The blobs start to rise.
Same way with our atmosphere.
Yes. You heat up the atmosphere, blobs of air start to rise, and that is what we call convection.
Yes.
That is convection. Simply just like a convection oven, the heat rises. Same thing with summer thunderstorms. That is convection, probably our most common type of thunderstorm,
especially
around
summertime.
Here. Yeah,
summertime. Now you can get some interactions when it comes to thunderstorms, whether that be frontal boundaries. We don't have the mountains here, which is great. But if you go out even into the Appalachian Mountains or even into the Colorado Rockies, you have some orographical lift.
Which is basically air kind of getting forced up
the mountainside.
Yep, that's called orographic lift.
Orographic, sorry, that was my nerdy term. Yeah. And then the sea breeze for me was new.
Sea breeze?
It kind of forces that convection upward.
Yep. You sort of need a little extra push. A lot of times you can get thunderstorms just simply from the rising air.
Yeah.
But a lot of times you need that something to get that air rising. So the sea breeze, which around here almost acts like a miniature cold front.
Yeah, it does.
As that cooler air kind of pushes in from the ocean every afternoon, that's just enough to get the updrafts going and get your convection going.
Yeah.
But you got to have moisture for thunderstorms.
Ingredient number one.
Absolutely have to have moisture. The spark, the lift,
Yeah.
something to get it up. To get it going up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then when you factor in, this is where the other episode comes in, shear, the rotation of a thunderstorm.
Yeah.
That basically will determine if this thing is going to be severe or not. So typical thunderstorm in the summertime for people who have never known, you get a rising column of air. Typically it's updraft and downdraft, rising and sinking air. You get severe weather, though, when you start to actually see that storm turn.
When you can start turning. And I always use the analogy of going up a mountain as far as getting a thunderstorm to rotate and getting it to turn severe. If you get a thunderstorm to rotate, in most cases it's going to turn severe, and it's a lot easier if you're going up a mountain to sort of go around the mountain, slowly going up, than it is to just go up the side.
I've never heard that analogy.
Yeah,
and
so
I love that.
You get that spin, and it's a lot easier for that air to rise even faster. Stronger updraft, stronger downdrafts, stronger storms, severe weather. There you go.
And there's so much parameters we could teach and talk about. But Joey, there is your
there
basic
you go, Joey. Appreciate it.
Of thunderstorms, which I love. Question of the day for us.
Yep.
This one was more growing up. We've kind of talked about this a little bit. This actually came from Anya.
Oh.
So she said, what was the number one thing growing up at any point in the meteorology field that you were most excited to learn or dive deeper into?
For me, it was hurricanes.
Okay.
And that was we kind of talked about this probably our first episode, I think. For me, it was hurricanes, and that was sparked by my experience in Charlotte growing up from Hurricane Hugo. Like, how in the did this happen here? Just how bad it was even that far inland from Hurricane Hugo. So that was kind of the thing. And here I am in a hurricane market.
And see, mine was all thunderstorm and severe weather base.
Yeah.
Still obsessed with it. But I would say it's obviously shifted being here because hurricanes to me are so fascinating. There's a book too, and maybe we'll read it at some point. We could do some tag team reading.
Story time.
I struggle at reading. But I think it's Melissa from the Climate Office posted about it. The top 10 hurricanes that changed the Carolinas forever.
Yes.
I would love to just read that book and come back and be like, all right, here's what we've learned. Because I know probably at least a good 7 that are going to be on that list.
Oh, for sure.
But there's probably going to be some stories in there that we've never seen.
There's a great author. If I were ever to have time, which I'll never have time, to sit down and write a book, it would be the hurricane history of South Carolina. I forgot the name of the author, but it's an amazing book if you're in North Carolina. It's the hurricane history of North Carolina. And this guy went all the way back as far as possible, I think probably the 1600s. And the whole book is nothing but a write-up of every single hurricane that affected North Carolina. I would love to do that for South Carolina.
That's awesome.
So if there's any publishers listening who want to incentivize me with a fat check, I'll think about it.
There's your contribution. If you're one of our 1,000 at this point. I was also told episode 4 was our most downloaded on Spotify and Apple. So thank you.
Kudos
we appreciate that.
And this is episode 5, right?
Episode 5.
All right, so
we're going to lose count eventually.
Let's break the record.
All right, episode 5. I feel like there's no planning that goes into this podcast.
Absolutely none. Your planning is a lot more than mine. Andrew has papers and notes
and
graphs and maps. I've got my glasses, my phone, and a cup of coffee.
If I don't, I'll forget. I'm one of those people that gets dates mixed up.
Yeah.
Don't forget the storm or the system, but I'm like, oh, was that 2018 or 2019? And then I'm going to say something.
Yeah, especially after you've done
correct.
so many. Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. So we were sitting down and talking, and just because of how active it's been already,
it's been one heck of a severe weather season so far. Not so much here, but obviously the middle part of the country.
We said let's just dive into tornadoes.
Let's get into tornadoes.
I think we should start at least with what's happened so far this year.
Right. So you only have to go back to last week. Today is April 4th
when we're recording this. So.
Yeah. So if you go back to last week, I did check this morning and did a little show prep this morning.
Okay, look at this.
From last week's outbreak, 100 confirmed tornadoes.
You got the
so
same numbers
far.
I got.
But there are crews are still out surveying today, so
Yep.
it may end up being closer to 110, 115
Yeah.
just from last week's. And then today, there's going to be another outbreak.
Yeah. Moderate risk last I looked.
Yeah, haven't seen an upgrade to high, which we had the high risk level 5 last week. But yeah, kind of 2 big areas of moderate risk again for today in almost the same areas, which is sort of uncanny how similar these two systems look.
Very similar. Also, I was thinking when that high risk, the 2 high risk, different areas came out on Friday. One of those was sandwiched right in the heart of an area that was impacted just a couple of days earlier.
Yes.
With Mississippi and Arkansas. And
Yep.
I was just sitting there when it came out Friday, and I was like, oh, this is not going
Yeah.
to be good. I don't know if I kept up with it as much Friday afternoon, but by Friday evening, I was glued to the phone. I texted you, and I was like, I'm catching
we
up.
were both,
This is crazy.
Yeah,
The
I was out
little-
with friends, and I was probably the worst friend possible because I was sitting at the dinner table, like on Twitter, looking at
Yeah.
videos. It was crazy.
The Little Rock video.
Yeah, Little Rock is insane, and some of the if you haven't seen, I think you shared some, I shared
Yeah.
some on our Twitter, and one of the things that struck me about the Little Rock tornado was it was wrapped in rain
Yeah.
for a lot of its lifetime, which is insanely dangerous. And a lot of the videos that I retweeted show things going from just kind of stormy to you're inside a tornado in
Yeah.
30 seconds, and I shared those to show like how quick it can happen.
And that was the storm. You're seeing a lot of these videos now. I think even our former meteorologist Jessica Dobson shared one. The guy's in recording from his garage.
Yeah.
It just looks like a heavy band of rain.
Yeah.
And then the wind
Bam.
starts sucking everything out of. I think they said his friend had to be pulled back. Just because that was a rain-wrapped
Yep.
tornado. It's honestly probably the worst case scenario outside of a nocturnal situation.
Yeah.
But Little
Which means
Rock-
nighttime.
Yes,
Come on,
sorry.
Andrew.
Nighttime,
Nocturnal.
sorry.
Nocturnal means nighttime.
But just one of the craziest videos from Friday.
Yeah. Yeah, that one, the dual tornadoes at the same time, which we also have on our Twitter
Textbook.
that was from Iowa. So that was a really huge outbreak, basically from Iowa all the way down to Louisiana and Arkansas.
And then, of course, the system before, the notable video that comes to mind is Mississippi, the on-air meteorologist there.
Yep. Who, I get it. You see it coming into a town, and you know.
And you know that town like the back of your
You
hand.
know that town, and you see that signature on radar. Around here, it's kind of like, it might be a tornado, it might not.
Yeah.
You get out there, and it's a tornado that strong, you know that it's on the ground like a drill bit, and it's doing damage, and it's going into a place you know. So that's tough to deal with on air.
And I'll tell you, too, just from watching some of the broadcasts, and you and I have had this conversation before, when we refer to Tornado Alley in the Deep South and that entire region, they are so – it's like us in hurricane season.
Yeah.
They're so well, knowledgeable when it comes to anything. You could say anything tornado related. They were pulling up correlation coefficient, which is our debris detection. We have to say that.
Yeah, we say debris detection. But
Over there, they're working radar scope or their radar app like the palm of your hand. It's fascinating for me to watch and see how they integrate their technology over there.
Yeah.
And how their verbiage works for that area because
Right.
they're so used to it.
Right. But it is similar to us in
Yeah.
covering hurricanes. We're kind of old hats at it now. You
Yeah.
go through a couple, you get it, you understand it. Same thing out there. But I think the cool thing that you kind of led into this, Tornado Alley,
Yeah.
classic traditional tornado alley. Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, creeping up into Nebraska.
Yeah.
The amount of tornadoes there going down because it's shifting which
to
is
the
something
east.
we've seen happening over a long period of time, but sort of traditional tornado alley isn't as tornado prone as it used to be.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of arguments on Twitter
Yep.
because who doesn't love a good
Right.
Twitter argument if you're watching
Especially
this?
in weather Twitter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That we should do away with the term altogether.
Tornado alley.
Yes.
Yeah.
For me, Tornado Alley refers to the states that you're talking about.
Right.
I don't think Mississippi, Georgia, Alabama,
Yeah.
Florida.
Which is quickly becoming the new tornado alley.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, basically, if you kind of start northern Louisiana through Mississippi into Alabama, kind of getting up into Tennessee, kind of getting up into northern Georgia. That is really becoming the new tornado alley.
Yeah, and let me tell you too, the shift in Dixie Alley, from Tornado Alley to Dixie Alley, it was at first nocturnal.
Yep.
The most nocturnal tornadoes happened in that area, but we've seen a shift now to where, with a warmer climate,
Yep.
you're looking at prolonged severe weather life extending.
Yep.
Not only, remember what we said had to happen for a thunderstorm. What did you have
Yep.
to have? Moisture.
Got to have that moisture.
What's close to
Yep.
those states? The Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah.
It is fueling these storms and these long track tornadoes, and it's becoming more and more common.
Through Dixie Alley, and another, increased moisture across the Deep South into Dixie, but also there's been a lot more drought in traditional parts of Tornado Alley, that Texas to Nebraska area, over the past 50 years or so. That's been a drought-stricken area. Obviously, without that moisture, it's hard to get thunderstorms. Thus, it gets harder to get tornadoes. So that's why we've seen that shift into Dixie Alley. Nighttime tornadoes, fast-moving tornadoes. A lot of the tornadoes in traditional Tornado Alley were kind of the picturesque Wizard of Oz, storm chaser, 3, 4 in the afternoon, beautiful funnel out in the middle of a flat field in Oklahoma somewhere, kind of your classic stereotypical tornado.
Yeah.
Beautiful, easy to chase, kind of have fun with, a lot of times out in the middle of nowhere. Now you shift all of that into the Deep South, into Dixie Alley, where the storms are moving faster. As you mentioned, they're more prone to be late in the evening, overnight, even early in the morning. And they tend to be stronger. A lot of EF4s and EF5s have been touching down in Dixie Alley over the past, especially 20 years.
I think of two, like if you remember, there's been a couple of days, and I don't have these dates on the top of my head. We talk about the moisture. You have to have a dew point threshold of at least, or you start out 65 degree dew point. Have to.
Yeah.
I remember there would be some days in the plains where they didn't get the moisture in time where everything came in. That's never the case in the Deep South.
Yeah.
We've always said that would always be the thing. But if you were to take the data, and I did the 20-year, because if you're listening to this or watching us, go back and look at the last 10 years if you can. Most of those tornadoes are right in Dixie Alley across Georgia, Mississippi. But 20 years ago, if you take the 20-year average, Texas, Kansas, Oklahoma, Alabama, Mississippi, 4 and 5 are approaching fast.
Yeah.
And they're approaching fast. Also, the density and population, I think, is another big one.
Yep.
Some of the tornadoes in Texas,
Out,
you don't
it's
hear
a couple
about
of cows out there, and that's kind of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not to mention, too, I think it was John on Twitter who said, keep in mind Texas's state size.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah.
Which makes sense. But the nocturnal tornadoes, we talked about Georgia, Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi. Other states, interesting, and I think it's that warm nose of air, Kentucky, Paducah. I think of the tri-state tornado. If you're listening from Kentucky, you would know. In Indiana, Arkansas, and Tennessee, nearly 50% of their tornadoes are after sunset.
Which are the most dangerous kinds, because people are asleep, not getting warnings, tornado hits, and that's kind of
what happened last week.
Yeah.
There was an image, and I don't know who shared it. We look at so much stuff.
Yeah, I know.
Did you see the updraft helicity? For people that don't know, that is rotating thunderstorms. Kind of gives us an idea on what thunderstorms down the road would be able to produce a tornado.
Yeah.
Did you see that model output and then the comparison?
Yeah. Crazy.
Really crazy. Not only that, but when you looked at the SPC, they did a great job. But even in those nocturnal tornadoes, I think of Indiana, they had many. That is where you saw a lot of the damage and the people,
damage and a lot of the
deaths,
a lot of the
fatalities.
injuries and the deaths. Yeah. So let's bring it home. I don't know if this is on your list of graphics
you're
or
the
maps.
local.
You've got maps. I love that.
So this
map.
is the tornado density.
We're gonna have to. We'll put that up.
We will, and we might be able to go to the one shot. So basically, what this is, and the only reason I did it is if you were to look at the plains. We'll put this up.
Yeah.
But all of these tornadoes in the plains, notice the tracks. There's a lot there.
Yeah.
But the tracks, and when we brought this full, aren't as long
Yeah.
as what you're saying, the more violent tornadoes. So when you look at, look at freaking Mississippi.
Yeah.
These long tracks going through here, through northern Georgia, there's the new tornado alley,
Yeah, exactly.
if you ask me.
But
Anyways.
this leads me into my next thing. And again, it's kind of hard to see on here, but we'll put it up for you. Pardon my still crippled finger. If you come in here to the Carolinas, there is a distinct...
That's why I printed it out.
There is a distinct area of more tornadoes and more intense tornadoes here in the Carolinas, and that is referred to as Carolina Alley.
So when interested, this is me literally asking a question, not that we've scripted anything. When did you first find out about Carolina Alley?
Honestly, when I started working down here,
Okay.
and even before coming here, working in eastern North Carolina, and realizing, okay, this area gets a lot more tornadoes than any other part of the Carolinas. And basically what we refer to as Carolina Alley, locally, is sort of in my head, and we kind of joke about this, Robeson County is kind of the tail end of it.
Yep.
It kind of starts in Robeson County, right there along the North Carolina, South Carolina border. We always joke that anytime we have any kind of severe weather outlook or a threat in place, all right, get ready for that Robeson County tornado warning, because it seems like it's much more common than anywhere else. But basically, you take from Robeson County near the border, you could even bring that down into maybe Dillon and Marlboro County and go up Interstate 95. That corridor tends to be prone to more tornadoes than any other parts of the Carolinas, and some big tornadoes in there from a couple of big outbreaks. You get Rocky Mount, Greenville, North Carolina, even Raleigh, especially just east of Raleigh, sort of that general vicinity tends to be pretty tornado prone.
And typically what happens, at least in my 4 years here, with the Carolina Alley, you can get some nasty storms just off to our northwest.
Yeah, yeah.
But something about the closer you get to, especially summertime or spring, except for one or two occurrences, the sea breeze or something will start to tear some lines up.
Yeah.
If you're watching us in Horry County or Georgetown County, most of your tornadoes are coming from a single cell or a squall line type event.
Or a tropical system.
I was about to say September.
I haven't looked at the numbers or done the math. If you were to take Horry County or even the city limits of Myrtle Beach or even just the Grand Strand, I would say 80% of our tornadoes are probably tropical related.
I didn't do that number, but I did do more research.
Yeah.
FEMA has the natural disaster map.
Yeah.
And actually ranks Horry County as one of the top 99 percentile counties in the United States to get a tornado because of the tropics.
Because of the tropics. And you
I
think
don't know the
back
number,
to, you think back to Dorian, Hurricane Dorian. I think we had 5 or 6
lot of
just in
warnings.
Horry County.
Yeah.
Some hurricanes are like that. Others aren't. Florence, we had, I think, 3 or 4 here in Horry County. So you can crank them out.
Yeah,
in
for
the
sure.
the right tropical system, it can crank out tornadoes left and right. So it's rare for us to get a big, powerful tornado in Horry County from sort of a non-tropical system. It has happened. There is one particularly famous tornado.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
That is the July 2001 tornado.
What was that day like? Do you?
I wasn't here then. I was still in Charlotte at the time, but I remember even being in Charlotte, and this, 2001. This is,
I'm sure you heard
this
about
is getting kind of early. You suddenly started getting a lot of reports that there's been a tornado in Myrtle Beach. There's been a tornado in Myrtle Beach, and you kind of think, okay, whatever. And then the pictures and the videos start showing up, and it was an incredible tornado for this area. Ended up being ranked at EF2. It was actually 2 tornadoes that day, but the one did the damage. The EF2, 40 injuries, $9 million in damage, and one of the strangest tornado setups I've ever seen. And it's still a setup, and I'll even text you guys about it every once in a while. Like,
Yep.
never trust this setup. And basically what we had that day, it was July 6th. Without a doubt, the busiest week ever of the entire year in this part of the country. Everybody's here. So Myrtle Beach was full of tourists. Typically hot, very humid day. I think it was up in the upper 80s. Dew points were like in the 70s. It was muggy. It was typical July in Myrtle Beach. We had a sea breeze that was slowly starting to develop, and that sea breeze was just kind of starting to get going up the beaches. At the same time, though, what made that day strange was a backdoor cold front. And by backdoor front, typically we think of our cold fronts that are kind of coming in from, west to east, blowing across the state. A backdoor cold front sort of eases down the coast from the northeast and actually pushes to the southwest. So that day, we had that backdoor front. It interacted with the sea breeze. You got a thunderstorm, and there was just enough going on right at that little intersection to get that rotation. Thunderstorm turned into a classic supercell thunderstorm and literally moved southwest down the beach. Totally opposite of what you would normally expect. Most of our storms around here racing off to the northeast. This thing was backing down the coast, which was crazy.
Backdoor cold front, my favorite phenomenon that
Yeah.
I've ever been introduced to.
Yeah.
Just because it is opposite. And then when you're making your graphics,
Yeah.
it's like, this looks
Yeah.
weird. But I bring up that point because you said it was July.
Yep.
Think of water temperatures. Think
Yep.
of what we've kind of already talked about, especially for the deep south. You get our water warm enough.
Yeah.
And you get the right conditions.
Yeah.
It's certainly possible. And an EF2 in this area is, EF1 or EF0 is
Yeah.
plenty.
But yeah, this was an EF2, and
I remember seeing those photos.
And it traveled literally down the beach. Started kind of up a little bit north, on the north end of Myrtle Beach. More or less went right over the pavilion. The pavilion was still here at the time. Went down the beach, actually stalled for a minute over Spring-Made Pier, and then continued down the beach, and then kind of finally hooked inland near the airport. Which is currently where the Market Common is,
Yeah.
and finally dissipated there. If you're familiar with Myrtle Beach, the airport kind of finally dissipated on the beach side of the airport.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. You may not know the answer. Also, do you listen to our podcast? Okay. I've noticed some tendencies. I
Yeah.
always say, let me ask you this.
Okay.
I
Ask
don't
me.
know why. What's your most memorable tornado you've covered? We cover a lot, so you may forget.
Yeah, and a lot of them end up
I
not
know.
being tornadoes. I tell you, I do remember. It was
And it
from
doesn't mean it has to be a big one,
it was from my previous TV station.
Okay.
It was a Sunday. There weren't tornadoes in the forecast that
Okay.
day.
That's what my most memorable
Maybe
is.
had a couple of severe thunderstorms in the forecast. I lived, this was up near Greenville, North Carolina. I was technically off that day, but a severe thunderstorm developed. A tornado warning was issued. Well, I lived basically 2 blocks from the river, the Pamlico River, up in eastern North Carolina. So when the tornado warning was issued, I was like, let me go over here and just check out and see what the storm looks like. Sure enough, I come to this little clearing and I can look out over the river, and literally there is the tornado on the other side of the river. So I ran home, called the studio, and actually did coverage on the phone, watching the tornado go down the river and kind of skip along and doing damage. And I was literally doing coverage on the phone as the tornado was a mile from my house.
I've covered obviously some bigger tornadoes. For me, it was a similar situation. We had severe weather expected. No big deal. 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. I'm in Kentucky, Eastern Kentucky. I'm sitting there at dinner because Emily's parents are in town. It's like, all right, I'm going to go get dinner before the storms roll in. We had a med on staff covering everything. Tornadoes were not in the forecast. A couple pop-up storms,
Yeah.
30%. And I will never forget getting a text because I always set up my alerts 1 county west
Yeah. Yep.
just to
Get that-
have
get
your
that heads
bases
up.
covered.
Yep.
Get a text, tornado warning, get on Twitter, had it right for our viewing area,
Yep.
tornado on the ground, there's damage.
Oh boy.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Hightailed it over the mountain. I don't even think I came in with a suit.
Yeah.
I came in with a t-shirt ready to go.
Yep.
She handled the chroma. I was there. Oh, stressful.
Yeah.
Wasn't a big tornado.
Yeah.
but just enough to cause the heart to race a little bit.
And I think we've all done that. We had not been on the air very long here, and we actually had a moderate risk in place, level 4, moderate risk in place.
Big time event.
This was on a Sunday. The whole day went by, barely even so much as a cloud by 6 o'clock that evening. Nothing. I was like, I'm going to run home for dinner. I run home. I leave here. There's nothing on the radar. I get home 20 minutes from here. Like, let me just double check. Severe thunderstorm had already developed in Darlington County. 2 minutes later, tornado warning was issued. One storm formed that day, and it dropped a tornado, I think, in EF2, very near the Darlington Raceway. Same thing. I'm not sure I stopped at any red lights coming down Highway 17. I was booking it back here to the studio, and those are the worst.
And what's crazy now is you would never see that from us just because the demand of everything we have to do.
Yeah.
We would never, like, I could think we would never take a dinner break during, like, a severe weather risk.
No.
Just because there's so much. And we'll talk about that in one former episode. But the same situation with my storm. It was one storm.
Yep.
Came in, took all the energy, and just said, all right, I'm having all this to myself.
I'm going to do it. Yep.
And I will never forget that. I did print out, before I forget, making sure we're good on time. Also, we're going longer.
We're attempting to go longer to see how people are feeling about it.
People wanted it, so
if
you're snoozing.
That was the consensus, right?
I want to kind of bust a myth that tornadoes are increasing year by year. Mm-hmm. It's not the case.
Nope.
This year is already off to a fast start.
Yep.
Does it mean that we won't have a slow April or a slow May? But you look at the last 20 years, and we're not increasing every single year. There's been some bad years.
Yeah.
But I was just printing off some of these numbers. The mean for the United States over the past, 2005? Mm-hmm. 1,380. Mm-hmm. 2022, we had 1,331. 2020 was a weak year. 2018 was a slower year. 2016 was a slower year. One of the more memorable years for me in 2008, Super Tuesday outbreak.
Yep.
And then 2011.
2011 was
were
big.
The two that I kind of thought, just to prove that this isn't getting worse.
It's not, and people are also seeing and documenting more tornadoes. There's more people, there's more cameras, there's more cell phones. Everybody wants to go viral, so you see a tornado, no matter how stupid it is, like some people we saw last week, get out the phone and get the picture and get the video.
No pictures worth your life.
Yeah. So we're seeing a lot more than we used to, and that was kind of, in its own little way, the Myrtle Beach tornado from 2001 at the time was the most documented tornado because, again, like I said, it was 4th of July week, a town packed full of tourists, and they're all carrying, back at the time, their camcorders probably on their shoulder or their, whatever. So there were so many pictures and videos of that tornado, and that's kind of the case now. There are more people seeing them, documenting them. So
weather in general, which I am thankful for.
Oh yeah, we love it.
We can be dialed into Oklahoma right now.
Yeah.
Whether it be their storm chasers, their station, their viewers.
Yep.
I think I texted you about tornadoes. I was like, tornado damage, seeing this. And it was up in Wilmington.
Yeah.
Just because there is so much technology. So
one of my favorite things to do, and this shows how sad my life is to sit back and watch other TV stations do tornado coverage.
Same.
It's like, and that's kind of what I'm planning. I'm off today. That's my plan this afternoon. Wherever that severe weather pops this afternoon, I'm going to curl up.
We're about to open a can of worms.
Yep.
What do you look for when you watch that? Because you and I are two peas in a pod.
I know that I have strict standards for when we do tornado coverage or hurricane coverage, and I kind of want to see that in other stations. I want to see live pictures. I want to see live pictures. I want to see the person doing it. I don't want to just hear a voice on a screen.
Yep.
And it's got to keep moving. You got to get me in local. You got to get me in, show me streets, tell me towns, restaurants, that are in the way. I love that kind of coverage, and I love good team coverage where the anchors
That's it.
and everybody's in it, and we've got 4 boxes on the screen.
If it's just one person for me, unless the technology's great,
yeah, I'm moving on.
I'm going to the next station.
I'm moving on. I want to see all the cameras and all the views, and
That's awesome.
the chasers out. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
The good stuff.
Me and you both.
Yeah.
Pet peeves when it comes to tornado coverage. I can open. I'll start if you want me
You
to.
start.
This is my soapbox. To all of our beautiful viewers, I hate when we get phone calls in the middle of tornado warnings.
Yeah.
And I get it.
Yeah.
Tornado warning comes out for Horry County.
Right. You're in Florence
You're
County.
in Florence County.
You don't care.
But there is no need to send us a nasty email
Right.
or a voicemail.
Yeah.
And there's some stuff that we cannot say on this. This would be Are You Serious After Dark?
Yep.
But the reason I bring this up is because Mississippi or Iowa, one of those, complaints left and right.
Left and right. And people are dying.
EF4.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we got people more focused on themselves.
Right.
Same with hurricane coverage. But
It says a lot about today's world. And
me.
And here's the thing. Let me put this out here in case anybody's unfamiliar with the fact. We have to do that.
yeah.
We have to do that.
Well, and we
FCC
don't
regulations,
control
we
that.
literally have to do it. If we're anticipating having to do a cut-in during your precious golf or your precious NASCAR race or your precious little football game, we try to make accommodations for that. We'll do a double box. We'll kind of do the severe weather coverage kind of back here in the corner.
Yeah.
We try to make it happen, but we have to do it. That is our job. FCC requires it.
Yeah.
And that's our job as a TV station, is to give you information and warnings about potentially life-threatening situations.
Yeah. Oh, there's an app now for that.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think 100% when I was in, if there was apps in college.
Yeah, it's
But
not like 1987 where you're going to miss the game and have to stay up until the 11 o'clock news to see what the score was on the game. Yeah, you can figure it out.
drives me like
Yeah.
there's nothing more frustrating than doing the coverage and being like, man, that was really good. I was so happy. And then you open up your inbox.
Yeah. And there's
To
the
hate
nasty
mail.
there's the nasty hate mail. It used to
It
bother
comes
me.
with it.
It used to bother me. I don't even care anymore.
Yeah.
I don't even care. Just
Sometimes I like to respond. So if you send it, I will more than likely.
if I'm tired and grumpy, I'll send a nasty little response sometimes. And I try to be nice, and I know I should be nice. And my bosses probably don't need to hear that, but I'll get a little snarky sometimes. Like, just stop.
I think it's Starkey.
Stop. Whatever.
Anyways, that's my pet peeve. I didn't know if you had one.
No, yeah, that's it. I would say definitely the viewers who hate us for it.
Yeah.
And I don't care. We're still going to do it.
Yeah.
And we're going to, like I said, we're going to try to make it as least intrusive as possible, but we have to do it. We're doing our job.
Yeah. And that's for every meteorologist in
Yeah.
the country. Anything else you want to add tornado-wise?
Oh, there's so much.
I know.
There's so much. We're already
8 minutes.
We're
which
already at the end of it.
we've went long. I don't
Yeah.
know if it's felt natural to you all. It has to me.
I'll tell a fun story about mad viewers.
Also, one of my favorite parts of the podcast is when you go on storytelling mode.
Yep. All right.
Like listening to it. I love it. So let me sit back.
So one of my worst tornado experiences as far as on-air coverage was again at my previous station, and it was during Ronald Reagan's funeral.
Oh, no.
One of the most popular presidents, of course, ever. It was his funeral, and I was watching storms, and sure enough, we got a tornado warning. I was a lot younger at the time. There's a famous moment in the funeral that was being televised live where Nancy Reagan lays down on the casket. Like the most poignant moment ever.
The image.
I'm Jamie Arnold with a tornado warning, and it was for like some way out of the way county. Yeah, that one was bad. That was probably the worst amount of viewer feedback I ever got. They did it again. They're literally going to start cutting the lights out on us. Shut up and get
I
out.
think I was supposed to restart that before we started, but it didn't
Touch
work.
it or something.
Yeah, you just have to click it. Welcome to live TV.
Oh, there it is.
Wish
There
I
we
would
go.
have known that for
Yep.
last
Yeah.
episode.
Yeah.
That's awful.
Yeah. Just there she goes.
And being young in the business too, like I can remember.
And I
Probably
took it all to heart then. Now, we're hardened and
Brush it off.
Whatever. Yeah.
5 minutes is what I was just told. Man.
Yeah.
Episode 5
Yeah.
wrapped.
So far, so good. We did have January. We had the one little EF0 tornado here in Horry County, west of Conway. I think that's all we've had this year.
Yeah, and I thought I wrote down how many we have on average, but I don't think I did for Horry. I don't know what it was.
Also did make me think of another really good future podcast.
Okay.
Let's get into one of my favorite things. Waterspouts versus tornadoes.
Love it.
It's kind of like waterspout season around here.
I was thinking of that. What was that, 2 or 3 years ago? Or was that last year? The tornadic waterspout?
Oh, we had a ton of waterspouts last summer, which was really good.
The one that went
Love a
in
good
and came onto the
waterspout.
beach.
Yeah, those are always fun.
Oh, that's one of those. The only other thing I was going to add is fatalities. Alabama leads with 14.
Of course.
We talked about that.
Yeah.
Other than that,
Let's talk about, real quick before we wrap this up, a couple more things that we have coming up. So we're going to do what we do.
which I'm looking forward to.
That'll be really fun.
Yeah.
What we do, kind of what our partnership with the National Weather Service is like.
So if you have a question for what we do, ask it.
Yep, because we are actually meteorologists.
We actually do stuff.
Yep. We're going to start lining up some guests down the road a little bit. We're going to start with talking to our team. Then we're going to kind of branch out and talk to some photographers.
I'm excited. But what we're going to have to do with that is we're going to have to do interviews, but then it's probably going to spark some ideas where it's like, all right, let's come back to the drawing board and let's really talk. If you all think of any guests you want.
And let us know what guests you want. And then one of the things that we've kind of been really getting excited about is maybe once or twice taking the show on the road.
Would people show up?
If not, we're still going to be there having fun.
Yeah, I think so. And I think we take it to a location. We bring a crew.
Bring a crew. People will show up. They see two mics.
Happy hour.
It's my favorite. It's my favorite hour.
We'll record it for happy
favorite hour of the day.
But then we'll play it at our typical 7:30 time.
Yeah.
So I like that a lot.
Good. Well, I think that's it, right?
That's it for Are You Serious?
That will do it for Are You Serious? Episode number 5. We will see you and hear you, and you will hear us next week for episode number 6, where we'll talk about what we do.
Yeah, what we do. Have questions, let us know.
Yep.
That's Are You Serious? Weather conversation between you and us.
Appreciate it, y'all.